So Albert Capellas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Just get a bit of a brief description of your coaching and playing background up to this point.
I started a lot of years ago to be a coach when I was 16, 17 years old in a very small town with kids from 8, 9, 10 years old, boys and girls with the lower level. After that, I like it, and I decided to be a coach in a very early age. That means because I was not good enough to be a football player. That is why I had a very clear idea when I was young that I want to be a coach. Then I went to a school. I was a physical education teacher in the school. Then we created a football school there. Together with a friend of ours, with Albert Viñas, and we start to create from zero a football school there. That means all the ages and also with a low level, and I was very interested already with the possession football. I was like this some years. Then I signed for Unió Esportiva Sants. That was I was a coach from Cadet A, that means 15 years old, and also the first squad, assistant coach. After that, I got the opportunity to sign for Club de Futbol Gavà. That was, in that moment, we were in first division, but amateur division. Was amateur football, and I was there 9 years. We promote 5 years in a row. That means until to arrive to second division B with the coach Tony Llavaria. We did a fantastic job playing fantastic football. I think nobody else did in Spain before to promote 5 years in a row. And after 9 years being a coach in Gavà, and after my experience in Escola Garbí in Barcelona, that was my laboratory, because everything what I was doing with Club de Futbol Gavà, before I was trying everything with the team in the school. That was my investigation and development program. And after that I decided to stop, because my aim was to be a coach in Football Club Barcelona. That means what I decided to do is, okay, if I cannot get it with this kind of success to come inside the Football Barcelona, I will stop coaching. And after 1 week that I stopped, Football Club Barcelona, I received a call from Football Club Barcelona to be assistant coach of Barça B with Iniesta, Víctor Valdés, Thiago Motta, with a lot of top players. That means my life changed very quick. I stayed 3 years there. Then I had to stop because there was a new elections and a lot of coaches we had to stop from Football Club Barcelona. I came back to be a teacher. And after 2 years, I come back to Barcelona again, and I was 6 years coordinator of the Youth Academy of La Masia. And after 6 years, I felt that I need to go to next step, because my dream was to go to professional football and to play Champions League. That was my aim and my dream. That means I decided to move to Holland, Vitesse. I was there 4 years. Then I moved to Denmark, Brøndby. Then I received the call of Johan Cruyff to be his assistant coach in Maccabi Tel Aviv. Then I received the call of Peter Bosz to join his project in Borussia Dortmund. We already coached together in Vitesse in the period I was in Holland. And my last step has been in China to be assistant coach of Johan Cruyff again. And now I decided to stop coaching after 10 years training around Europe, and I start to do my football courses, education, sharing my knowledge to all the coaches who have interest to learn about my experience, especially regarding the possession football. It's a longer story.
An interesting journey. It's lots of important calls there in your life which affected your journey. It's interesting, now we're here at St George's Park. I've just been lucky enough to watch you present here on the excellent Advanced Youth Award, which is a great course. You're the home of English football. You're sharing about your wonderful work, your journey, but much about the work at Barcelona. Why do you think there's such an interest in Barcelona and the way they develop young footballers?
I think it's because of the success of the first team of Football Club Barcelona. I remember before Johan Cruyff arrived into the club, we were maybe 20 or 30 clubs in the world. But when Johan Cruyff arrived in our football club, he changed the mentality, and he bring the winning mentality, and also the way that we like to play football. And he had success. That means he won a lot of leagues in Barcelona. He won the Champions League. That means all over the world could see the level of Football Club Barcelona. But the main thing was also that they had success with a lot of players from the youth academy. Yeah. That means a lot of players, they were being developing in the youth academy of Barcelona. And that is what also the people around the world could see. Wow, they are having success, and more than 50% of the players are coming from La Masia. And then we start to get all the interest from the football world. But that can happen because Johan Cruyff was 8 years in Football Club Barcelona. That means he had a lot of time to help not only the first team, also the players from the youth academy. And to help us that everybody plays in the same way, that we train in the same way, that the first team. That means when you get the stability, then you are increasing the possibilities to have success. And this model, it happened the same with Frank Rijkaard, and it happened the same with Guardiola. That means when Guardiola had success, there were a lot of players from Barcelona. They win a lot of trophies. That means that it kept again all the attention from all over the world. But it's too many years having success since Johan Cruyff, because we say that everything started with Johan Cruyff, okay? And Guardiola he made the model more perfect.
Because I was going to be the next question, because it's interesting, because you talk about Cruyff a lot in your presentation. Yes. You mentioned Guardiola.
Yes.
I mean, so you just mentioned Rijkaard there, but you see Cruyff as like, stage one, and almost Guardiola then progressing that and taking that to the next level.
Yeah, that is my belief. I don't know if it's true or if it's not true, but of course the way of playing everything starts with Johan Cruyff. That's for sure. This positioning play.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes.
Tell us about this philosophy on the Cruyff.
Yes, absolutely. Everything starts there. But for example, the big difference between Johan Cruyff and Guardiola was Guardiola had this way of thinking. Cruyff had this way of thinking that I don't care to win 5-4. Because it's very nice for the spectators. It's a very great game. And Guardiola says, I want to win 5-0. That means for Guardiola it's also very important that he doesn't receive goals. And that is the big difference between Johan Cruyff and Guardiola. But of course, a lot of the knowledge of Guardiola came from Johan Cruyff, from that inspiration. Yeah. He also says that. But then Guardiola is a very smart guy that has learned also from another coaches, has studied another sports, another football coaches, and then he tried to make the philosophy of Johan Cruyff even better. That is what he's trying.
So then let's wind it back a bit. Your first role with Barca B. What was that like? This is your dream job you've been looking for. What was that first job like? What were the challenges and experiences in your first role as Barca B?
When you arrive in Barcelona B and you have the chance to train, I was assistant in that moment. It's just a dream that came true, no? To play with such top players that all the drills that that they have to do, they are doing in the right way with the top technical. They are very intelligent, very well educated, that they really perform in every training. That was my biggest impact. The level of the players, the attitude of the players from the youth academy, that their behavior was absolutely amazing. First, I thought it would be very difficult, but what happened was much easier than all the jobs that I had before. That was the big impact that I had when I came to Barcelona, that I thought, oh, this is much easier than I thought. And the reason is because they are so good and they need less help than all the other teams. And also in the way that you treat the players, because they are so good and their behavior is so exceptional, it makes your job much, much easier.
What about in terms of, as a coach, you've gone into that environment, were they doing anything differently than the drills and the practices you were used to? Did you see, what was the difference between, was it just the quality of the players? Maybe the space is just a bit smaller, speed just a bit higher, or is it something different in terms of approach?
People say to me that what is the key point of the Youth Academy of Barcelona, and I always say, I think but this is my belief, is scouting. That they really put a lot of attention in scouting, and they have a lot of knowledge how to scout players for our philosophy of playing. And they have a very clear, predefined profile per each position, and they really try to look for players who are very intelligent, who can think very fast, who can take decisions, always try to do the right decisions, but also players with a very high technical level. And one of the key points of Barcelona is that they never look the physical part of the player when they are young. They don't care. They only look about the technical skills, the tactical skills, the brain. And then after 15, 16 years old, then the physical condition of the players will equalize. And then which player will have more possibilities to have success? The players who have as high quality as possible, and they can understand the game in the better way. That is one of the key points.
So you'd say then, sorry to interrupt, so as a key attribute for a Barcelona player is a clever footballer?
Yes.
That's the number one. So if you have someone who can't run, maybe, who's not fast, it's not a problem. I mean, athletics were...
Yeah, but first we should define what it means fast in football. Yeah. Because if you are very fast and you are capable to run from 1 to 100 meters in 9.5 seconds, maybe you are very, very, very fast. But then if your timing is not good, when you have to put a cross, you cannot see the position of the players who are coming into the box. Then I prefer a slower player, thinking in physical way, but has a fantastic timing and a fantastic technique. That means we see the velocity, the speed, in different way, and that is one thing. And coming back to the other question, another key is the position games.
Okay.
The position games that we train a lot of position games in a very small space, and what we try to do with the position games, playing with 1-2 touches, is squeezing the brain.
Okay.
And there is not a special drills, because a lot of clubs, they do position games. But what is really another key point is the way that they coach these positioning games, that they go really deep.
So just to clarify then for the audience, Albert, so a positional game would be like an overloaded game, 4v4 plus 3, yes. 4v4 plus 2, something.
Yes.
And what's the difference between a positional game and a rondo, just so some people know?
Rondo usually is, for example, 7 against 3. That means there are 7 players outside and 3 in the middle. Okay. There is not 2 teams. Okay, but in 4 against 4 plus 3, that is positioning game, is you have 2 teams and 3 flouters. Yeah. That means in attack is 7 against 4. Okay. That means when you lose the ball, there is a transition, attack, defense. Okay. That is the difference between Rondo, positioning game, but also then there is another difference between keeping the ball. That means in positioning games, all the players, they know in which position they have to play. That means usually it's play and stay, is not play and run. Yeah. That means you really have to keep your position to create triangles that everybody knows more or less in which position you are. When you play keeping the ball, that is a different drill, maybe it's 8 against 8 plus 2 flouters. Yeah. That means the players can pass and run, they can move, they can occupy different areas. In Barcelona, mainly we do the positioning games, at least almost all the times, and we don't do too many drills that we are thinking about keeping the ball, that is play and run. Okay,
so it's directional in a sense. Then.
Yes.
There's always, because would you argue that you could cover every aspect of the game in one of your positional games?
Absolutely. We say that in a drill that, for example, 4 against 4 plus 3, that is 11 players involved. But maybe in 6 against 6 plus 4 or 7 against 7 plus 3, from a very simple positioning games until a more complex position games. As more players are involved in the position game, more complex is the game. And you, in every positioning game, there is all the phases. That means all the key points that then we will have to use during the games We are training that in Positional Games, the body shape, finding the line pass the ball between the lines, second line pass, first line pass, second line pass, all these kind of aims that you have to use it. For example, in transition, when you lose the ball, in our way of playing, in our way of thinking, we say when we lose the ball, we want to get the ball back as quick as possible, because it's the best moment, because the other team is not organized. And because it's not organized, it's the best moment to make press. And the player who has lost the ball is the first player who has to react, and the players around, the 3-4 players around, they have to try to really try to pick up the ball back as quick as possible.
And I want to come back to your 5-second rule. Because we're going so fast.
Sorry.
That's okay, because I want to make sure I get all the information from you, because you've got such great information. So we'll come back to the pressing, because it's an important area, and I'll relate that to the younger players. But you talked about the slow players. You made the point before about Guardiola, who may be not the fastest runner, but the fastest thinker. I mean, that's a really important point. I think maybe a lot in this country, and maybe in America as well, there's a real emphasis on physicality and recruitment. A lot of they are big, strong, and quick, and maybe the football intelligence is not top of the agenda when looking for it. So tell us why is it so important, do you think, then? Why is it so key to have those clever players?
First, because the ball never gets tired. Then what is important that you can move the ball fast, because when you are moving the ball, the opponent has to move. That means they are expending energy. They are getting tired and tired. They are losing concentration. And if you are in your right position and you don't run too much and you move the ball fast, you are increasing the chances to open the opponent team without expending too much energy, just waiting for the right moment to make a deep run. And in this moment, then you have to be very aggressive. You have to run very fast to surprise them. But you really have to understand when you have to stay and play and move the ball, and when you have to make the deep run. And that is one of the things that the players from Football Club Barcelona, especially what they are teaching in the youth academy, to learn when they have to play and move the ball and when they have to run, to save as much energy. And also, that is because if you lose the ball, you are more fresh. That means then it's easier to make the pressing forward, trying to pick up the ball back as quick as possible, and take advantage of this chaotic moment. And if you can win the ball, maybe you will create a chance to score a goal. That is also why we like to make the ball run.
So Albert, you have a choice. You have a player who's very clever but maybe not very athletic, or you have the fastest player in Europe who's a real athlete and beast but maybe not the greatest football thinker. Are you taking the thinker every time?
When we are scouting players, we always try to find in which quality he is very, very good. Of course, if you find a player who is very, very fast, can be a fantastic winger. Then we are looking in which other qualities this player has. But always when we are scouting players, we are trying to find in which thing he's very good. For example, his technical level is very high, or he's very fast, or he scores a lot of goals, or maybe he's a player who understands the game fantastic. That means in one aspect or two aspects, he has to have a very, very, very high level, exceptional level. And then if he can handle all the other aspects, and then we see, okay, and now in which aspects this player maybe doesn't have a top level. Then we have to try to figure out if we can help him to grow the bottom level. Because when we're like coaches, we like to develop the level of the players to do every time more difficult things. But the way that I think and the way that we think is to help the players to play simple. That means what we're trying to help them, the way that we like to develop them is helping them to grow the bottom level. That means they do good the simple things. Because to do exceptional things, this is talent. This is a scouting. And to help them to play simple, this is coaching.
Okay. Yeah. It's an interesting point because you made that earlier about simplicity and complexity, and maybe complexity being talent, and then maybe much of the work at Barcelona is about getting the boys to play simple, 1-2 touch, everything's 2 touch, everything's built around that team philosophy. Is that?
I think so. I think if your quality is not if you don't have a 1-against-1, is not a big quality for you. Why you have to try to do a 1-against-1 in the game?
Yeah.
That means you really have to try to play in the things that you are good, that you use the way of playing that you are good, and try to that the people cannot see in which things you are bad. That means if you don't have the level to play long balls, don't do it. That is why we try to help the players to do the simple things. And of course, if you have the talent to play 1-against-1 and you are close to the box and you are in situation 1-against-1, of course you have to show that talent. It doesn't mean that we want all the time to play in 1-2 touches. But when the moment is there, then you can play with more touches and you can make a 1-against-1 and you can dribble the ball, but when the moment is there. That means what we are helping to the players is the preparation in the phase of build-up and creation, that we help them to play in 1-2 touches and to recognize the moment to change the rhythm.
So you made the point earlier about you like to condition your practices, so 2 touch max, 2 touch maximum.
We think that in 2 touches is enough to move the ball, and in the phase of build-up and in the phase of creation, we think. And that is why we spend a lot of time during the trainings, during the drills with control pass, with possession games, but also through the short games, 6-against-6 to play, or 7-against-7 to play in 2 touches, because we think that that helps the players to develop the lower level. What happens if you only can play in 2 touches? That means the first control has to be good. Because if you have more touches and the first control is not good, then maybe the ball bounces. You put the head, you look the ball, and then you need an extra touch. Then you have to head up the head to see what happened. Then you use the 3rd touch. But if you only have 2 touches, you really have to concentrate to make a fantastic first touch, a fantastic control, otherwise you will lose the ball. That is why we are squeezing the brain and we are squeezing the technical level. And also, if we only play with 1-2 touches, you have to be sure that your body shape is okay, because otherwise you will lose a range of view, you will lose information. That means you will take worse decisions. But if you allow your players to play with 2, 3, 4 touches, then what happens is they have a wrong body shape positions, they use the extra touch when it's not needed. That means they will lose the ball more times. That means the level of the game is going down, and also you are not helping the player to develop. That is why we force them to play as much times as possible with 1-2 touches. But of course, sometimes we also allow them to play with 3 touches and be themselves.
That would be my next question. What about those 1v1 players, Pedro, Masia, those players that come through? Where do they get their chance to hone those 1v1 skills and those? I mean, still there's evidence for 1v1 in 2 touch. We know that, but then those longer dribbles, those longer time spent on the ball.
Yeah, in the trainings, in the training sometimes we play games where they can develop these skills. But what we tell them is where and when, in which position of the field they can use that skill, and when they have to take risk, when they don't have to take the risk. But this is a talent. One thing is when you play simple, another thing is when you play complexity. One thing is when you play a structure, that is build up, creation, passion, and another thing is creativity. And you never know when the creativity will come. And that is when the top players appears, when you need the creativity. And sometimes we say to these kind of players, listen, when you are in the last third, follow your heart. Now is out of the tactics. Yeah. That means we help all the team to move the ball, to deliver the ball in a position close to the ball. When you receive the close to the goal, then just follow your heart. Then it's about creativity. Then in that moment that they change the rhythm, and something can happen, maybe dribble 3 players, maybe fantastic combinations, maybe a fantastic run, a fantastic key pass. This is creativity that you cannot control that. Then it's not about how good you are in offensive, that is talent. Then it's about rest defense. That means if we lose the ball, what will going to happen? That is the way that we are helping the teams. But do you think that we has helped Messi how to dribble? Do you think that we has helped Pedro how to dribble? This is talent. If you see videos of Messi, of Pedro when he were very young, they are doing the same. Yeah. If you see videos from Iniesta when he was very young, he was doing exactly the same things in the same way that they are doing now in professional football. What we are helping them is where and when, not how. You cannot trade the how.
And just before we move on to a bit more depth about the academy, just what's your thoughts? Look, there's a lot of debate about game-based training and technical work, unopposed technical work. I noticed in your presentation you were talking about some drills, passing drills that would help with movement and third-man runs and those sorts of things. And as you may know, in America now, the federation's saying they don't use positional play type practices or rondos because it's not maybe game realistic. What's your thoughts on that?
Of course, they have their reasons, and I respect that. At the end, we don't have the truth. What we are doing here is to share our experience, but we don't have the truth. That is, but what is true that in the past we developed fantastic youth players that they won a lot of trophies with the first team. Maybe with another methodology you can have the same success. And if they do, I will take a look and I will try to understand why. That is important that we don't have the truth. That is the first thing. I have a really strong belief in position games. I think inside of the drills in position games, the 4 against 4 plus 3, 6 against 6 plus 4, that the players stay in their position, playing with all the phases in the game, in transition, attack, defense, defense, attack, how you have to defend when you don't have the ball. In these drills, everything is inside. Okay, that means if you want to play offensive and creative football and you want to have the ball, the most important aspect is control and pass. If you don't have a good control and you don't have a good pass, everything is more difficult. Yeah. That is why we spend a lot of time making drills, the control pass, in 1-2 touches. Sometimes it's only passing, sometimes it's control passing, sometimes it's combinations. From drills from only 2-3 players until a much more complex drills that they are involved maybe 6, 7, 8 players. Then it's about boxes, rondos. Yeah. That is, we play in 1-2 touches with the same concept. But now you have defenders. That means it's a little bit more complex. And you use all the technique that you are learning in control pass, then you are using the boxes. Then you go to the next step, that is with positioning games. 4 against 4 plus 3, 6 against 6 plus 4, 5 against 5 plus 3, it depends. Okay, then you have 2 teams, that means there is transition. That means every time is from more simple to more complex. Yeah. Then we go, for example, to the short games. No, we play with superiority. For example, 9 against 7. We try to simulate situations that the players will find during the game. Yeah. In football, there is not 2 situations that are the same, that every situation is different. But in training, you can recreate, you can reproduce situations that are similar. And when the moment is there in the game, the players can recognize it and they can take better decisions. That means we try to develop the non-verbal communication. And the way that we do that is we are giving as much experience as possible with situations that are similar that they can find during the game. And when the moment the game is there and they recognize this kind of situation that is similar, because they have a lot of similar experiences during the training, they can take better decisions during the game. And then you can play, for example, games 6 against 6, in a shorter space that they really have to play in 2 touches. They can shoot from everywhere, double area box. The distance is double area, 6 against 6 in 2 touches. They really have to play very fast. They can shoot from everywhere. If you think it comes from a very simple until a very complex. And then, of course, you can play 11 against 11. Yeah. And, for example, you can say in a half field, you have to play 2 touches. In the opposite opponent side of the field, you have 3 touches. Okay. And then we are trying to help them in different ways. But if you see, all the training is based in 1-2 touches. All the training, that means their experiences during the trainings, year by year, because they do that in a lot of years in a row, they spend 70% of the time, 80% of the time just playing in 1-2 touches. That is why it makes, for me, it's my way of thinking, I don't have the truth, that is why it makes so interesting the positioning games. And if somebody else thinks that that is not the right way to do it, I respect that. I will watch them.
So give us what would a typical session look like at Barcelona for
a typical session?
Under 15s.
First, a very short warming up.
Yeah.
In the warming up, we make maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes maximum. That can be involve the ball. It depends on the age, but maybe can be a control pass or can be. We try to develop in the warming up the socio-affective relations between players. That if it's possible, they have to touch each other, they have to grab, because then is when you develop the social relations between players. It's not the same if we talk. That if we have to push and we have to grab and we have to jump together, the relations grow. We use the warming up for that. Of course, also to help the players to come with to grow the concentration, to feel a little bit the ball, but very short. Then can be a control pass, maybe a triangle or a Y form with 2 touches, 15 minutes maximum. We make 3 drills, from simple to complex, and from there we stop every 3-4 minutes. We stop. 1 minute stop is important. Then you can say some things during this minute. They drink a little bit water. After that, we do the positioning game. For example, 4 against 4 plus 3, and we play 3 times 4 minutes. For example, it's not really like this. Sometimes we say, okay, 5 minutes. The space is bigger. The area is bigger. The second time is maybe 4 minutes, and the space of the area is a little bit smaller. Yeah. And then the last series is 3 minutes and even a smaller space to squeeze the brain, to force them every time to make it more difficult. After that, we can drink. Between every series, again 1 minute, 1 minute and a half maximum. And then when we change from drill to drill, then maximum 2 minutes. That means everything has to be organized before you go to the field. Yeah. Then maybe we can play short games. That is 3 teams of 6 players, double area box, and we change every goal or every 2 goals. Or if you win the game, you can stay. If you lose, you are out. Or maybe you can make a competition. It's 1 hour 50 minutes in total. What is important that you don't lose the rhythm. That from the session starts until the end, that everything is organized and it keeps the rhythm. When it takes too much time to go from one drill to another drill, that maybe takes 5, 6, 7 minutes, the concentration of the players goes down.
So having that intensity.
Intensity, we really like to talk about is quality versus quantity. Yeah. It's not about how many hours we train about football, it's about which quality has every hour that we train quality. Yeah. We train football. That means we think that between 1 hour and 1 hour and a half per session, 1 session per day is more than enough. If the session is in a high quality, high intense, and of course the way that you coach the kids or the professional players is in the right way. When you lose the rhythm, that means the coach talk too much, it takes too much time from one drill to another drill. When you lose this flow, this rhythm, it's much more difficult to keep the concentration of the player, and it's much more difficult to reach higher level in the drills. Yeah. And just I want to add one thing. For example, I had one coach, Quique Costas, in Barça B, that I say to him, we will do this drill, 4 against 4 plus 3, 3 times 3 minutes. Okay. And was the last series, the third time, 3 minutes. I say, okay, now we have to stop. And he didn't listen to me. And he was continue. The level was absolutely amazing, fantastic. 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and he didn't stop. 6 minutes I say, Kike, please, you have to stop. Because we have a game in 2 days, we cannot train. I say, Albert, this is going so well, I will not stop them. If you want, I will give a free day tomorrow. But it's so difficult sometimes to reach this type of high level of coaching, of training. That means now that they are there, why we have to cut it? And that let me think a lot. And that is the same in opposite. If you want to do a drill in 4 minutes and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, just stop and go to another one. Don't stay in that in the bad energy too long. Of course, you try to solve it, you try to correct, you try to encourage the players to do it better, you try to coach them to make it better, but if at the moment it doesn't work, change. That means the numbers, the preparation, the structure is there and you have to do it. You have to know more or less how much time you want to train, but you don't have to be 100% strict. Yeah. Always you have to feel, you have to follow your knowledge, your experience, what your brain and your heart, your instinct. Yes.
Interesting. So let's move on a little bit. Just tell us about the structure of the academy. So you talked about the U8s to U14s being educational and the U15s upwards being competitive. What does that mean?
When the players are very young, under 8 and under 13 and 14, is a period of age that they are open to learn. And they are developing like a persons, but also like a footballers. They really want to grow. They really love the game. They really love the ball. That is a fantastic age to influence them. And is an age that is a very important age to help them to grow in values, to be a good person. I really think that is a period that we can influence a lot with their habits. That means in the way that they approach the schoolwork, in their behavior, that they really try to be help them to be honest people. But also that is why in that age we think that is good that the coaches are more like teachers. Coaches, that they have the will to help the kids, to talk with the parents, to talk with the teacher in the school, to tell them when they are having a bad behavior, how they can change this attitude. Because if we can do that in these early ages, we know that we will increase a lot the possibilities to reach the professional football. And when when they will arrive in the professional football, it will be much easier for them to handle that pressure. And then after 14, 15 years old, 15, 16 years old, then we think is more competition. Okay, that means from 8 to 14 is more educational, and from after 15 years old is more competition, because the top players, maybe when they are under 16 or 17 or 18 years old, they have to play in professional football. That means that when they are 15 years old, they are very close to the professional football. We cannot see that, but that is what it happens. Then we have to help them to handle the professional football. And then that is my belief, through my years of experience developing players, is in that period you need coaches who knows everything about competition in a high level, that they can teach all these kind of things that the players never will read it in the book, and that give all these experiences. That means in that period I prefer coaches who knows what it really means professional football. Maybe some of them are very hard, another one are more friendly, another ones, that means every coach have to have his own personality, but they really can help the players to train them what it means to be a professional player.
Interesting. And for instance, the under 8s, the philosophy of training an under 8-year-old is the same as training an under 9-year-old, U19, sorry. I mean, the philosophy runs through the club. That's correct. I mean, you talked about that.
Yeah.
You want this positional play. What's a positional play look like for an under 8-year-old?
It's the same. The thing is, when it's under 8, they play 7 against 7. That means in your squad, you will get 11 players, 12 players maximum. It means that in that ages you will not play 8 against 8 plus 3 or 6 against 6 plus 4 because you don't have enough players. That means the number of players that you have in training already cuts which kind of drills you can do it. That means you can do the 3 against 3 plus 2, that is 5 against 3, or you can do the 4 against 4 plus 2, that is 10 players. You can do the 4 against 4 plus 3, that is 11 players, or you can do 4 against 4 plus 4, and between there is a lot of variance.
So the principles are still the same?
Yes, these drills also, this drill, the 4 against 4 plus 3, you can do it when they are 8 years old or 10 years old, but also the professional footballers, they will do it. It's the same drill. What it makes the difference? The distance, in the way that they do it, maybe the rules, but it's the physical condition. When they are young, they will think slower, they will press slower, they will move the ball slower. That means everything is going slower. And when it's professional football, they press much harder, they think much faster. That means the level of the drill, it will be here and here. That is why through the years, what we are helping is making the 4 against 4 plus 3 from under 8, under 10, under 12, under 15. We are helping them to arrive here, but in a holistic way.
Okay. So, and you know, what about, you talked about training a winning mentality. I mean, that's not just as obvious as it may seem. What are the factors in that?
At the end, football is a game. Everybody wants to win. I think we can say a kid that the most important is to participate, and that is very nice to say it, okay? But at the end, the kids, they want to win. Another thing is how you want to win, no? And we say you can win in different ways. And the first way that we like to win is trying to being most honest team than the opponent. That means that we really have a good behavior during the game. The second way to win is we have to play better than the opponent. That means if we have a football style, we have to play in the way that inside of the club we want to play. In case of Barcelona was offensive and creative football, trying to play with feet touches, making triangles, okay. Then we have to be sure that at the end of the game, we played better than the opponent. And at least, but not last, so you have to win in the score. But we don't want to win in the score if first we didn't win in the other two aims. That is the way that we like to see winning. And also we think that was a fantastic way to help our youngsters to develop in values. That is not only focused about the score, is also focused how to win in behavior. That is what I say. I don't like to say the most important is to participate. No, but we have to help the youngsters in which way they have to win.
Mm. And so now moving on to like the training, the structured training environment, as you called it. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you have a one football philosophy that runs right through the club from an 8-year-old to the first team. I mean, how powerful is that?
Yeah, it's very powerful. When the board members of the club, they have a very clear vision how they want to play, how the philosophy or style of the club, yeah. Then it's very easy to organize the youth academy. Because the coaches and the players, they can train and they can play just developing one football style. The most important is not the system style, is the football style. I'm talking about the football style, not the system. Because if we know from the beginning that we want to build up the game, we want to pick up the ball back as quick as possible, we want to press high, we want to keep the ball longer when is necessary. All this kind of combination playing. If you know that, then you can develop all these aspects through all the education of the kids. That means when they have to play with the first team, it's much easier for them to adapt with the level of first team. I have heard a lot of players from under 19 or from the reserve team of Barcelona, when they got the chance to train with the first team, when they came back, I asked, okay, how it was? They say to me, no, it's much easier. I say, of course, it's much easier because you play with better players. That means everything what you do, you play with better players, then it looks easier. Yes, and when they play games with the first team, they say, it's easier to play with the first team than the reserve team. It's the same concept. That means when they can develop with the same way of playing, the same way of training through the years, and the first team respect that philosophy as a style, it's much easier to bring players into the first team.
What about, because obviously look, your main ambition is to prepare players for the first team. What about players going and playing at other clubs? Do you think maybe a player from Barcelona might go and maybe struggle to adapt to a different football culture because it's not the Barcelona way?
Every player is different. Of course, when we were in Barcelona, the most important thing is to prepare players to get the first team. That was our vision. That means the coach of under 15 was not the coach of under 15, was the coach of Football Club Barcelona to help players, young players, to get the first team. That is very important that you know that. But then, of course, if they cannot get the first team, it's important that they can play professional football, that they can live with a style of life that they have chosen, and that is to play football. And of course, outside is cold. It's not the same because not too many clubs develop youth talents like Football Club Barcelona. That is why when they go outside, it's very important that they choose the right club with the right coach, with the right philosophy. And if you go to a club that the football style is very different, you will have less possibilities to have success. But still, there are players that they have success outside to another clubs. But you really have to make an effort to take the right choice. And sometimes the players, they don't spend time trying to choose the right club or the right coach who respects the philosophy of football that he likes or that he likes to play. That is the difficult part of making the last step into the professional football. But every time you see more and more players who are having success out of Football Club Barcelona.
And you've also said something which was quite interesting to me. You talked about setting profiles of players first at a young age, so recognising maybe who has the assets to play in what position. So you talked about the number 6,
yes,
the Busquets role, right? So is that?
Yes.
So what age would you start thinking about that, and tell us a little bit about that as well?
I like to think as quick as possible, as soon as possible. When we select players, we think, oh, this player can be a number 6.
So even from under 8?
Yeah, he will be a midfielder. He has the skills to be a fantastic number 6. At least we think that he has the skills. Yeah. Okay, that means he's a player who thinks very fast, who always have a good body shape, who always can find the third man. He's a player who is in the right position. He's a player that has the talent to make the press forward. He's a player that never loses the ball. Okay. That it looks like this player will be a number 6, but when he's number 8, you don't know if he will be a slow player thinking about physical. Yeah. When he will be older, that means maybe he has to end like a central back. But the nice thing that he was developing his skills when he was young, like a number 6, that the vision of football that he had during all these years was a 360 degrees vision. That means he always get footballers from everywhere. Yeah. That you are really squeezing his brain. At the moment that maybe he's not good enough to play like a number 6, then you have the chance. Maybe if he's taller, maybe you have the chance to put it like a central back, and then he only have to watch the game almost 180 degrees. That means for him it's much easier. He gets much more time, and then maybe you get a fantastic central back. The same can happen with a winger. If maybe we have a winger that we think is very fast, and we think that can be a fantastic number 7 or number 11, perfect. But maybe when he's under 17 or under 18, we think, oh, he's not good enough to play in a top level. But maybe you can change his position, and maybe he can play like a right back. And then, if he's fast, has a fantastic technique, he gets much more time, maybe you get a top right back. And that is the way that we like to think. And this, it happens with all the positions. We think that this player has the conditions to play in this position, and we try to select players, to scout players per each position with a predefined profile. But we know through their career the things can change. But at least we start to think in that way.
And tell us a little about you talked about the different phases of the game. Why don't you just go through those different phases and why they're important and how we approach them in our training?
I think if you want to train, if you want to prepare good trainings, it's very important that you have a very clear way of playing. That is, you have to know your game plan. And that means when you have the ball, first thing you have to think, okay, I want to have the ball. Yes, okay. Then if you want to have the ball, you have to take the decision if when the ball is in the goal kick, if you want to play a long ball or you want to build up the game. It doesn't make sense that you say that you want to have the ball, but then when the ball is in 5 meters goal kick, you play a long ball because this is a 50-50 ball. Yeah. Okay, then what we do is, okay, we develop a strategy, we help the players to build up. That is the game plan. And then we study how they will press us, okay, how we can build up the game, how we can find the free men. And then we have the ball from the beginning, and that increases the possibility to have the ball longer time. For example, or we say, if you want to have the ball a lot of time, because the ball never gets tired, you really have to learn when you have to make the deep runs, when you have to change the rhythm to create something special. Sometimes it's after 10 seconds, sometimes you need 1 minute. Okay, but what we are helping the players, telling them, okay, if the moment is there, if the door is not open to make a key pass, just calm, wait, move the ball, try to create angles, move the ball quick, but always with a purpose behind it. It's not just pass the ball because we want to pass the ball. No, we are trying to get something from out of this. That is something that I want to tell you about this. And finally, in transition, for example, if I want to have a ball possession, what happened? If I lose the ball, I want to get the ball back as quick as possible. Then it comes the 5-second rule and the pressing forward. And because if you don't make the 5-second rule, that means you don't try to get the ball back as quick as possible in the next 5 seconds, what happened? They will go out of the pressure, and then you have to drop, you have to defend close to the box. That means you have to defend more time. That means the time that you will get the ball, the possession, it will go in down, that you really need to have a game plan. And then it's much easier to understand, to prepare the trainings. That means if I want to play in that way, I have to prepare the trainings, thinking in the way.
Tell us about that then, because obviously pressing is a really important part of the modern game. How do you prepare young players to start their journey on to understand how to press?
Again, through the position games. Yes, if we play 4 against 4 plus 3, we help them, okay, when you lose the ball, you have to make direct pressing from 5 seconds. That means from very young ages. That means we are installing this habit in their hard disk. Then, when they don't have the ball, we are helping them how they have to defend in position games. First, close the line pass, that they can play the balls through. Then we help them to recognize in which moment they have to change the rhythm and press much more aggressive. Okay, if it's a bad ball, it's a bad pass, it's a bouncing ball, or maybe the ball is too slow. That means we help them from the beginning to recognize the moment that they have to press very aggressive. That at the end is education. And give them experiences, and then there is a moment that they just recognize that. That means that is also why we say positioning games is so important in the way that we want to play. And
I think many coaches, I mean, I'm lucky enough, I've seen positional games working effectively, but I think some coaches will maybe struggle to find the association between a positional game, a 4v4 plus 3, and an 11v11. So how to say and how to maybe communicate that to their players. Say, look, this is exactly the same as what we'd be doing if we're in a half pitch here.
Yeah, but this is about knowledge. It's very complex. In position games, there are hundreds of tips that are really interesting, but not everybody can see that. That means you need a lot of experience, you need a lot of knowledge, and you really have to spend time to try to understand how to play, how to train in a proper way the positioning games. And sometimes people who says that, and I don't want to be too hard, but sometimes are coaches that they don't have the experience. Maybe they didn't have the luck to stay around people who really knows that. That means when they talk, maybe they don't know everything. And maybe for them, they are out of their comfortable zone. And maybe that is also one of the reasons why they don't like. But it doesn't mean that they have the truth. But in the other hand, I always say, I also don't have the truth. Yeah. I don't say that I have the truth. I say, with my experience, with the knowledge I have received, with all the experiences that I had in my football life to train kids, also professional players, I have arrived at the conclusion that positioning games for me are crucial, are one of the key aspects.
So Albert, yeah, some coaches may say that we're talking about building up from the back, that maybe they don't have the players to do this, or maybe the opposition's too good. I mean, I was lucky enough to see your presentation with the Vitesse team. What's your thoughts on that, about whether about playing out from the back maybe under pressure?
First, you need the knowledge, how to do it. Yeah. That means first you have to know how the opponent will press you, and then it's about how you can help your players, the way that they have to build up to have more possibilities to increase the ways to have success. Then you really have to convince the players to do it. And how you convince the player is about knowledge. That means telling them why, if they build up the game in the way that you are helping them, which advantages they will get it. Then, of course, you need players with a high technical level. That is also, if you want to play position football and you want to build up the game from behind, it's important that the technical level of your defenders is very high, because they have to do it in 1-2 touches. You cannot touch the ball 5 times, because otherwise they will press you. That means it's complex.
And think about, sorry to interrupt, some, because a lot of people who are listening or watching will coach youth teams. So I mean, what about at the beginning of the journey? How do you get those players playing out from the back when maybe they're going to make mistakes? Maybe you're going to concede goals. Maybe you won't win every game. It's
not a problem. You have to support them. What you cannot do is ask your players that they have to build up, and when they make one mistake, then you are very hard on them. You cannot do that. You have to support them, and you have to give them the tools, the information to do it better in the next time. I remember when Victor Valdez was a keeper in the first team, when Guardiola was a coach. At the beginning, he did mistakes. And every time he got the support of the coach, of Pep Guardiola. And that is important. That means if you try to build up the game, at the beginning especially, you really have to support your players, and you have to accept that at the beginning, maybe you will lose games because of that. But at the end, if you are doing a great job, and the players follow you, and they have the talent to do it also, at the end, the advantage that you will get to having the courage to build up the game is much better or much higher than just playing a long ball and try to fight the second ball.
Well, I mean, us here as well, we're in the home of English football. I mean, it's interesting because England have recently changed the way they play in the first team and the youth teams, and interesting, we've seen a lot in the Premier League this season as well, of teams trying to build from the back, making some mistakes, thinking about Arsenal early in the season, and becoming more successful. So my question was going to be, why is it so important to have the ball, early on in that build-up phase?
First, because if you have the ball, you know what you can do. And if you can pass through the first pressure, then you will put the other team in the other half. And that it brings you a lot of advantage, the way that you want to play. But in the other hand, sometimes people think that build up the game is that you have to play with the central back or with the left or right back. And that is not true. At the end, to build up the game, it means maybe we have a situation, 3 against 4, that they are pressing very high, or 5 against 6, that is a situation, the 6 against 5, for example, we have to end in a situation that 2 against 1. That we create movements that at the end the players will create a situation 2 against 1. And 2 against 1 is much easier to solve it than 5 against 6. Okay? That is the first concept that people has to really... And second thing is, if the other team, for example, is pressing very high, maybe man-man marking, okay, then where is the advantage? It's not with the central backs or the left or right back. The advantage is in front with the strikers, that is 1 against 1. That then maybe it's better to play a long ball. What build up, it means how I can find the free man and how I can build the game to increase the possibilities to have success. And what happened a lot of times in football, that is because a lot of mistakes it comes in that way that you were talking before, is the other team also plays. That means they also are learning how to press high. And every time they have more knowledge. That means every time is more difficult to build up the game. Sometimes the opponent team is pressing very good, and still we are trying to play with the central backs, but maybe the free man is the number 10. That is why you need a lot of knowledge to help your goalkeeper, how he can find the free man. And then if that happens, you will reduce a lot the possibilities to have mistakes. But if you build up, sometimes you will do a mistake. That's for sure.
And I suppose that's a challenge as well, is the coach having the knowledge, but then imparting the knowledge on the players.
Yes.
So understanding the movement, the rotation, and how that works, and how do we cover, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, you have to use videos. You have to, the way that I did, I use a 2-dimension drawings, animations, that we can tell, this is the way that they will press, and this is how we can do it. And at the end, we can control the first 2, 3, 4 passes. But at the end, the players have to find the solution. And what you are trying to do is trying to help them, listen, this is the way that they will press. I can offer 1, 2, 3 options. But maybe after 5 minutes, the coach changed, they changed the way to press. That at the end is the game. That means at the end, you have to really help the players that they can read the game for themselves. Because when you are in professional football, from outside it's very difficult to help the players. That means at the beginning they will have less experiences. That means they will have less options to solve the problems. But when you are doing this for under 8, under 10, under 12, under 14, under 15, and first year of professional football, second year, third year, you are getting much more experiences how to build up. That means when you get problems, because you have much more experience, it's easier for you to find the solution. That is why teams that they try to build up, the first month they are struggling, but after 3 years they are doing much better because they have much more information, much more experiences, and the players can find a way to solve it because of the experiences.
And tell us a little bit about third man runs, the third man movement. This is, I know, it's a really important part of your philosophy, Barca, and obviously Ajax, which you
absolutely.
Tell us about the importance of that.
Johan Cruyff, he always said, it's impossible to defend the third man. I talk about the third man, also diagonal passes. When you talk about diagonal passes, when you play horizontal passes, it's easy to defend, shuffle to shuffle. Or when you play vertical passes, it's easy, up and down. This is easy. Okay. But when you play diagonal passes, then you have to think in both ways. And 11 players. That means the possibility to open the gaps is much. You increase the possibility to open the gaps. That is because it's more difficult to keep concentrated. And of course, maybe you can do it like a team, 10, 15, 20 seconds. But after 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 1 minute, moving the ball in diagonal passes, the concentration of the defending team is going down. That is one way. And then is the third man. That means the third man is, if I pass the ball and I pass the ball to another player, again, it's more difficult to defend. the complexity of defending is much higher. That again, you are increasing the possibilities to have success. That is why Johan Cruyff was saying it's impossible to defend the third man. Of course, you can have success one time, 2, 3 times, but if your pattern of play, you use a lot of times the third man, you will increase a lot the possibilities to have success and break the lines of the defending team.
And then we saw that with Ajax do that successfully this season in the Champions League against Tottenham particularly.
Yeah. They are I think one of the things that is very good in Ajax is because when we talk about position play, when you only play horizontal passes from one side to the other side, first is boring, and at the end you don't get any advantage of that. What is interesting that you play the ball inside, then you play the ball outside, because when you play the ball inside, the defender team has to squeeze. That means when you play outside, then you have the space outside, and then they have to split up, and then you play inside, then you get more space. That is what is important. That is not playing only from one side to the other side. That is important that you have the courage to pass the ball between lines, to find the free man between the lines. And that is one of the things that teams like Barcelona or Ajax or now Leverkusen are doing very, very, very well. And why they have this courage to do it? Because they were trained from very young players in this way of thinking. And also we know the statistic says that if you are capable to pass the ball through the opponents by passing the opponents, you are increasing a lot the possibilities to win the games. And that is why, again, we used to train this skill through the positioning games. Because when you play the 4 against 4 plus 3, the 6 against 6 plus 4, all the time you are playing diagonal passes. All the time you are playing the third man. All the time you are playing passes between the lines. That is skills that you will use it during the game.
And what about yourself, Albert? What's the future hold for you? What's your ambitions?
The thing I learned is never talk about the future, because if I think with all the things that had happened in my life the last 10 years, I thought I had control about my life, but now I realize that is not true. Just the opportunities come, and your life in football can change in 1 second, just one phone call. That is, but in this moment I stopped coaching after 30 years, and I am thinking about, I'm already doing, is giving lectures around the world, helping federations, football clubs, coaches, individual players that they want to develop themselves. That means I want to share my knowledge, and I'm getting the time to do that, because in my life I learned from a lot of coaches. I was so lucky to live next to the Nou Camp in Barcelona. I was so lucky to have the possibility to follow Johan Cruyff a lot of years, his trainings, the dream team. Then I had the luck to work in Football Club Barcelona, to follow Guardiola, to follow Rijkaard, Van Gaal. That means I learned from a lot of people. I grabbed a lot of information from a lot of people, and that makes me the person or the coach who I am now. And now I really feel that is the moment to share all my knowledge to all the coaches that they need around the world. Not everybody can afford to have a trip to go to Barcelona, to have the chance to watch the trainings, to have the chance to talk with the coaches. It is very difficult, and every time is more difficult, because the youth academies now, they are closing the doors. Okay, then I thought, okay, the way that I can offer my knowledge is traveling, but also I am developing one website online.
So tell us about this website.
Yes.
What's the website called?
It's PossessionFootball.com.
PossessionFootball.com, and I was lucky enough to see some in your presentation. Very interesting. So just give the people watching a little bit of a breakdown.
No, what I am trying to do is that all the knowledge that I have until now, I try to write everything, to draw everything. I am writing and drawing everything myself. I am putting this in a platform that the coaches, they can log in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, And I try to do it with a very low price that everybody more or less can afford. And everything is based through the positioning game, through the possession football. Is for all these coaches that they like to play football from behind, to build up the game, to make the 5-second rule. This kind of football that it helps Barcelona to win a lot of titles, and it helps Barcelona to develop a lot of talent players to play in professional football, but also it helps a lot to the Spanish national team to win the World Cup or the European Cup. And now we can see what is happening with Manchester City or what was happening with Bayern München. That means I try to put all this knowledge in that website.
So I guess an idea, what sort of content is on there?
The content, the content is basically, there are 2 parts at the beginning. The first part is training. That means it's control passes, boxes, rondos, positioning games, short games, evolutions, based in our way of playing. Then is the part is the way of playing. I mean the phases of the game plan, how to build up the game, how you can create the superiority, how to make the 5-second rule, how to make the pressing high. And there are a lot of drills that are animated in 2D dimensions with explanations in English. In the future it will be also in Spanish and in different languages, but it's a very long project. Also we have video examples that you can really see what is happening in the reality and how you can train that, and at the end is a tool that it forces the coaches to think. I think is a tool that I would like to have when I was very young. I would love it if I had the possibility to have this tool when I was very young.
And just finally, it looks like a very strong possibility of having an Ajax against Barcelona final, Champions League final. Do you think this is a Cruyff legacy, if you like, a celebration of positional play and that type of football?
For sure, everybody will say that. For sure. At the end, we think that quality always wins at the end in a long term. But of course, sometimes you can find another teams who are playing in different way that also they can win. Because sometimes we have seen players from Italy, for example, Inter de Milan, that they were defending very low, very compact, very close to the area, and they had a fantastic counter-attack. They also could win. But in a long term, when we see who control the football in the last 10 years or the last 15 years, then you see that the teams who try to play football have more chance, more possibilities to win. And now, if the final is Ajax Barcelona, for me is very happy because it confirms a little bit that we are in the right way, in the way that we want to approach the football game. But again, we don't have the truth, and there are another ways to win in football. That's for sure. And the game is changing. The game is changing. That we have to rethink all the time. We have to think what is happening, because before the press high was not so important. But now, for example, every time there are more teams who are pressing high. That means that it forces all the coaches to think more. But that is the nice part of the game. That is an evolution. Because, of course, we talk about the Cruyff legacy, but the way that we play football now, even if the foundation of everything is from Johan Cruyff, is, if you really read the games, are very different, the games now than 20 years ago.
Yeah. Albert, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.